I am King Garen's greatest tactician, Nor's dread mage, Iago. The pleasure is all mine.
We have got a fun video for today. Iago is our newest Grand Hero battle unit, and boy does he bring some absolutely wonky stuff to the game. He may not be the greatest threat in a pure fight, but if you run into him you absolutely need to pay attention because his unique weapon just does some crazy annoying things. As a unit, Iago is a red infantry mage, and we have quite a bit of those if you're looking for a heroic grail option. He comes with 42 HP, 38 attack, 27 speed, 23 defense, and 32 resistance. 38 base attack is very impressive, but unfortunately, Iago doesn't exactly go all in on damage. His HP stat is going to be the most important stat if he uses his unique weapon, and 42 base HP isn't too bad, but will need some improvement because it's going to be used to compare with his enemies. Iago's tome is going to be his most outstanding feature, and it's got a long description which you need to understand. First off, it's a 14-my tome and grants a flat +3 resistance. This gets Iago up to 35 resistance, which is not bad and can potentially be put to good use. For the effect of the weapon, it splits into two separate parts. First, at the start of odd numbered turns, if any foe's HP is less than or equal to Iago's HP -3, and that foe is not adjacent to another foe, inflict attack and speed -4 and guard on that foe. For the second part, at the start of even numbered turns, if any foe's HP is less than or equal to Iago's -3, and that foe is adjacent to another foe, inflict defense and res -4 and panic on that foe. This is a very neat little tome, and boy is it going to be annoying if you mess up and aren't paying attention. I want to start with the second part of the effect because we've seen this one before. Essentially on even numbered turns, Iago's tome is very similar to Aversa's knight, minus the attack and speed debuffs. He's still going to inflict defense and res debuffs and the very annoying panic status on low HP enemies who stand too close to their allies. If you've played Aether Raids, you definitely have seen many Aversas because Aether Raids makes it tough for players to spread out, and she can literally stand in the very back and be annoying. I still to this day use Aversa on my offense team because there are still defense teams that clump together and utilize field buffs. Not to mention, in Aether Raids, thanks to the element blessing system, Aversa can get a very huge HP boost. That does bring us to the first sort of downside of Iago and his tome, in which it's going to be a more PvP oriented weapon. In harder PvE content, the HP stats of enemies are just way too inflated. The second downside is that the consequence of running an HP comparing weapon is that you kind of need to invest in HP increasing skills. If you do not hit certain HP thresholds against your enemies, the entire weapon becomes useless. For the most part, Iago should be fine against squishier units, but if the enemy is running multiple high HP tanks or army units, he's going to be less useful. Now going back to the first part of Iago's tome, this is a really fun effect. On odd numbered turns, it only affects foes not adjacent to an ally. Aversa's Knight and Sabotage skills have been around for a while, and their hard counter is to just not be next to an ally, pretty easy. Iago is flipping that around, so you have to pay attention to what turn it is, or he's going to hit you with a -4 attack and speed debuff, plus the guard status. While you can easily avoid panic by not using field buffs in the first place, you can't exactly hard counter guard unless you already have your special pre-charged before combat. You can soften the effect by having skills that increase special charging, but generally guard still messes up builds centered around special activations. Many units rely on special procs for killing power, so you have to watch that turn count or position correctly. Returning to the topic of Aether Raids, the mode only gives you 7 turns to win. If there is an enemy Iago, he may force you to waste a turn waiting for either panic or guard to go away. That may not be a big deal, but you can build a defensive team centered around stalling the enemies, so with some beefy teammates and some annoying defensive structures, Iago can have a place just like Aversa. I would have to think the same applies to offense, but if you want Iago to apply panic like Aversa, you have to wait for an even numbered turn. On the bright side, if you run into a defensive team that is spread out, you can inflict guard instead. Personally, I find more defense teams clump together, so getting guard to happen may not be consistent, but Iago can solve this with certain skills. I think one of the main differences between Iago and Aversa does come down to skill inheritance, and we'll discuss that later in the video. Coming back to Iago's base kit, he has Blazing Wind as his special. AoE specials do scale well with higher base attack, but unless you run Special Spiral and Heavy Blade, Iago doesn't exactly run it better than any other high attack red mage. For his A skill, he comes with HP and attack 2, which grants +4 HP and +2 attack. Normally these simple stat boosters are just there for show, but like Aversa, you probably are gonna run health increasing skills for Iago, so it can stay. His C skill is attack opening, which grants a +6 attack buff to the ally with the highest attack stat, not including the user. Can't really complain about this skill, and Iago is debuffing the enemy team, so a support skill fits his kit. All in all, because Iago's main draw is his crazy tome and it's fixated on HP comparisons, he can keep all of his base kit. His high base attack is great, but with only 27 speed, Iago is not going to be doubling a lot of enemies, and if we take HP increase in skills, we can't take speed increase in skills. He will mostly be used for his long range debuffs. If you want to give Iago a little love for his first merge, it gets him +1 HP and +1 attack. Definitely solid, but for absolutely max HP gains, you're going to need to +10 him, kind of like Aversa. Personally, I do fine with my +1 Aversa, but I understand it can miss some enemies. If you're not going to fully +10 Iago and you're bringing him to 8th or raids, offense or defense, you 100% want the extra HP boost from multiple mythic units. For his neutral nature boost, he's going to get that extra point of HP, which we're definitely going to take, and he's going to get +1 attack and +1 res, which are one of his better stats. We're not going to go too hard on comparisons because Iago is so unique, but compared to other heroic railroad infantry mages, you'll see that Iago fits in right at home. Good attack, middling speed, low defense, and decent resistance is shared with Canis, Julius, and Arvis. Iago does use his extra BST to be a bit sturdier than those three, however. If you're ditching speed, then Leon bumps up his other stats, but Iago still has more of everything except for 3 defense. This group of free units really needs some refines. Now luckily for Iago, no matter what you think of his stats, in terms of combative power, all he really needs to do is just stand in the back with more HP than his enemies. It's nice that Iago can still deliver a pretty solid single hit attack, but with his unique weapon the main goal is to apply those debuffs. For builds, Iago is super easy to use on a budget. You just want 2 HP increase in skills in the A slot and Sacred Seal slot. You can take double dual HP stat boosters for an extra +8 health. That's going to get a 5-star Iago up to 50 HP, which will cover a decent spread of units. Of course, the higher the better. Like Aversa, Iago just needs to stand in the back and let his debuff support the team. If you want some combative power, adding a breaker B skill like Axe Breaker or Sword Breaker can help Iago double tank your units and act as a counter for one enemy type. Keep in mind that you don't exactly want him to take damage though, so ideally you want Iago to be on cleanup duty or be attacking melee units that won't hit back. In terms of specials, I would personally not use Blazing Wind. Iago doesn't want to trade blows to charge it up, and while he uses it well, something on a lower cooldown like Iceberg may be more useful. Attack opening is totally fine to keep, but you could exchange it for something like Attack Tactic for wider spread attack buffs. Savage Blow and Panic Ploy are 2 other useful skills, but if you want to run double HP increase in skills, they'll have to go in the C slot. If you want things to get a little spicy, Iago can use some strong premium skills, some that Aversa can't even use. For one, if you did his Grand Hero battle, you'll see that Iago has even pulse tie. This skill solves the problem of guard not stopping pre-charged specials. I still beat the map with my special Spiral Lysithea, but you know, at least they tried to stop it, and if the enemy Iago didn't suicide into my attack range, it would have been more useful. You do see a bunch of infantry pulse teams or special spiral Philias in 8th raids, so being able to shut that nonsense down if they don't act fast enough is useful. If you want Iago to always have panic inflicting abilities, he can use sudden panic. I think this isn't that bad to stack with his weapon because of on odd number turns, if the enemy sticks together to avoid the guard debuff, they now gonna get hit by panic. How annoying is that? What if Iago uses a rally skill with a ruse debuff? Then on even number turns he can still inflict guard, and on odd number turns he could hit an enemy adjacent to an ally. The whole odd and even guard and panic gets confusing, but that's the whole point of this wacky weapon, and I love it. To take it further, Iago can use odd and even wave buffs to his advantage. On odd number turns he inflicts a speed debuff, so let's give our allies a speed buff with odd speed wave. On even number turns he inflicts a defensive res debuff, so let's use even attack wave to do more damage. If you run sabotage attack, this would work similar to sudden panic, and Iago has decent res to use these skills. On odd turns, Iago's tome targets non-adjacent allies with -4 attack and speed. But if he has sabotage attack, then they get hit with -7 attack if they are next to an ally anyways. He can absolutely just mess with people depending on what skills you use. Throw in some chills or ploys and let the debuffs fly. As an HP stacking infantry unit, he can also use infantry pulse as well. Of course, you could also just bring another debuffing ally. Bringing in multiple sabotage skills would make odd numbered turns just incredibly awful because no matter what you do, something bad happens. Thanks to being an infantry unit and having access to more skill options, Iago is definitely not just Aversa 2.0. If you want some alternative combative builds, you don't have to run HP increasing skills, but you should understand Iago's tome was not going to hit every enemy then. High base attack plus lower speed means sturdy impact is a decent A skill, and you can pair this with double savage blow skills to lower the health of enemies to hopefully catch them on the next turn. Unfortunately, because Iago will probably take a decent loss of HP in a fight, it means even less enemies affected by his tome. You can solve this by using a healer, but keep in mind that his tome really sucks if he's not constantly healthy. If you want to break away from his wacky tome, maybe you think it's too gimmicky, then Iago isn't the worst Raven tome user. If you go with the triangle depth setup, it works nicely with his high base attack to one-shot green or colorless units, add a breaker skill for more coverage, or add an attack and defense boosting skills. Of course, we can't talk about high attack mages without mentioning the blade tome. While Lilina exists, maybe you'd like her better with 4 blades, or maybe you just don't like using her. Even without an attack boon to get, Iago is still up there in attack for a red mage, and a blade tome solves any problem if the enemy dies in a single gloriously buffed up explosion. Vantage also isn't a bad B skill with any weapon you go with. So should you 5-star Iago? Well, he has a very impressive base attack stat for a free mage, and his HP and resistance aren't too bad either. His big draw is his unique tome, which applies different debuffs depending on what turn it is, but he also has to have more HP than his foes, so skills like HP and attack 2 are fine to keep. Attack opening is also fine, as Iago's main job is to support his allies from the back lines. We talked a lot about Aversa because Iago plays similarly to her. The two of them have a focus on HP comparisons, so they want to build more HP, and both of them can inflict stat debuffs along with panic. Iago, however, changes the rules every turn with an odd turn, even turn mechanic. He not only inflicts different debuffs based on which turn it is, but he also has different positioning requirements. On odd turns you have to stay near allies, while on even turns you want to spread out. For PvP modes, if you do not pay attention to what is happening, then Iago's shenanigans can win the battle. Like Aversa's Knight, Iago's tome is mainly going to shine in either Arena or Aether raids. The 7-turn limit on Aether raids plus having to deal with defense structures can make Iago an annoying defense unit. Obviously that's not going to be the case for everyone in every battle, but if Aversa causes you problems, then Iago is definitely a threat. If you use Aversa for offense, then Iago could make a nice light or Astra counterpart, especially if all you really want is to inflict panic on clumped up teams. In terms of builds, Iago is sort of forced to build for HP if you're dead set on debuffing every enemy, and of course you can't hit everyone if they are also fully invested. He could be fun to use if you run Hollowing Hector with the dual structure so you can hit the enemy with 40 damage beforehand. It's a very disgusting tactic that I've had the pleasure of watching my defense team lose to. While Aversa may be a bit speedier than Iago, he does have the advantage of running other types of annoying skills. We talked about how he can use Even Pulse Tie, Sudden Panic, or a Ruse plus Rally combo. Those are some expensive skills, but Iago can inflict guard or panic on any turn, and his odd number turns are especially scary because he hits non-adjacent enemies. If you have skills that target foes that are adjacent to a teammate, then you guarantee something bad is going to happen. I don't think Iago is flat out better than Aversa, but I do think he's easily just as good. You can get around both of their debuffs, but for units that just have to stand in the back and stack HP, they sure are annoying. That's it for this video. I think Iago is an absolutely fun unit. His artwork and voice lines are great, and that tome is just so ridiculous and creative. Like an actual tactician, he makes you think about every move, and a slight slip up could cost you the battle. Very awesome Grand Hero battle unit. I think his impact won't be as big because Aversa has existed for so long, but I'm curious to see him in action. Let me know your thoughts on Iago in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video.